Good morning. In our previous classes, we studied different types of operating system. In today's session, we'll discuss about another important type of operating system called distributed system. In our previous class, we studied what is a multiprocessor system. As a name indicates, a multiprocessor system is one where instead of one processor, we have several processors working parallelly with some proper coordination. One such example of a multiprocessor system is parallel system. And in the previous class, we studied what are parallel system and what are their features. A parallel system is also a multiprocessor system where the different processor in a parallel system share three things. They share memory, they share clock, and they share input-output devices. And the two different types of parallel systems are, one is symmetric processing, other one is asymmetric multiprocessing. A symmetric multiprocessing is one where all the processors are similar. That means they work on the same copy or identical copy of the operating system. An asymmetric multiprocessing is one where the processor need not be same. Each have their own characteristics, each have their own advantages and disadvantages. And in case of asymmetric multiprocessing, we have a type of relationship called master-slave relation, where one processor works as a master which controls all the remaining processor in that system, and the remaining processor which waits for the master processor, we call it a slave processor. Some of the advantages of parallel systems are cost-performance ratio is good, and since memory can be shared, it results in saving of memory, and throughput is high because more work we can do it in a given amount of time, because the entire work need not be completed by only one processor, that is distributed across several processors. In today's class, we will introduce another type of multiprocessor system called distributed operating system. We study what are the differences between a parallel system and a distributed system. What are the characteristics or salient features of distributed system, advantages and disadvantages of distributed system, that too when compared with parallel system, how the different processors in a distributed system are arranged. That arrangement we call it a topology. What are the different types of topologies and where actually distributed systems are useful? What are the application areas of distributed system? After attending this class, you should be able to understand why we need distributed system. What is the purpose of distributed system? How it is different from the previous multiprocessor system called parallel system? What are its advantages and disadvantages? And what are its applications? Where actually distributed systems are useful? A distributed system is one which is also a type of multiprocessor system where the computation, the overall computation is distributed across several processors. That's why this is also called a multiprocessor system only. A parallel system, we call it as a tightly coupled system. Why it is called tightly coupled system here? The different processors in a parallel system share clock, memory, and the input-output devices. So every processor need not have their own, every computer need not have their own memory. The memory of the one processor can be shared with many computers or many processors. But in case of distributed system, we call a distributed system as a tightly coupled system or lightly coupled system. Because in the case of distributed system, the memory need not be shared. Every processor have their own memory and clock. So these two things need not be shared in the case of distributed system, but they are shared in the case of parallel system. So each processor has its own copy of the memory called local memory. The processors in a distributed system communicate with each other through different media like telephone line, high-speed buses, optical fiber, satellite, etc. A distributed system, another name is loosely coupled system, whereas the parallel system, another name is tightly coupled system. The processors in a distributed system vary in the functions and size. That means all the processors need not be of same size or same configuration, and the function or the work assigned to different processor varies from one processor to another processor. So some processor may be very powerful processor, In that case, more computation can be allocated to that particular processor. Some processors are slow processor. In that case, less computational burden is allocated to that particular processor because the speed and the size of the processor is not same in case of distributed system. The processors that are used in a distributed system could be a microprocessor, it could be a workstation, or it could be a mini computer. The different processors which are connected to one another for sharing of work, we call by different names. The different computers or processors in a distributed system, we call it a node. We can call it also by site, junction, or computer. So these are the synonyms for the different processors used in a distributed system. In case of distributed system, all the processors need not be situated in the same building. One processor may be in Mysore, another processor may be in Bangalore, one processor may be in some other country also. So any processor in one place can access the resources available in some remote places. So the user can access the remote resources similar to local resources. Every processor has its own memory, every processor has its own clock, etc. In addition to that one, you can also access the resources of other computer by sitting at his local computers. A distributed system provides many advantages. Some of the main advantages of a distributed system are resource sharing. The resources available in one site or one computer can be easily shared by another computer at some other place. Second advantage is sometimes if the computation is too big or if the workload is too big, if you try to do it in one computer, it takes a lot of time. So what we have to do is the entire job or entire work can be divided into, decomposed into sub jobs, and each of these sub jobs can be parallelly executed by different processors which are connected to one another. So by breaking a large computational task into smaller and simpler subtasks, the burden can be reduced. Load sharing. Some processors are very powerful. So in that case, what happens is, if in a particular site or for a particular processor, the work allocated is too big, if it is taking too much of time, then in that case, the work can be divided and that work can be reassigned. The another part of the work can be reassigned to another site. So by transferring some jobs from a highly loaded site, some processor may be loaded with too much of job. So in that case, the processor takes more time. To avoid that one, the work allocated to that particular processor can be reassigned to another process also, which is lightly loaded, because at that moment, that particular processor need not have any work. Instead of allowing that processor to sit idle, some part of the work which is allocated to a highly loaded site can be reassigned to a lightly loaded site. Reliability. In a distributed system, several processors are connected to each other through different communication media. One site fails, then your system should not fail. Your system should not stop completely. The work allocated to that particular site can be reassigned to another site. So failure of one or more site will not halt the system completely. For example, ATM. In one ATM machine, you are not able to withdraw your money, means at least you move into some other ATM machine, because that the work allocated to that ATM machine, now it is reassigned to some other machine. So failure of one or more site will not halt the system completely. And the last one is, the user at one site may be able to communicate with another. For example, State Bank of India example you take. The State Bank of India has several branches scattered across different cities in India. One branch wants to have a communication, we want to send a mail to another branch. In that case, they can make use of the distributed system. The distributed system allows the user at one site to have a communication with the user at another site. The communication may be in the form of electronic mail. At the same time, a distributed system suffers from certain drawbacks also. Any system, if it gives some advantages, means definitely some drawbacks is also involved. Some of the major disadvantages of a distributed system are higher cost, because here in the case of distributed system, that is also a type of multi-processor system. Instead of one processor, we need to have many processors, and at the same time, every processor has its own local memory and can have its own clock, and can have its own input output devices, because memory and clock cannot be shared in the case of distributed system. It naturally, that too, in addition to that one, the different processor has to be linked together through some communication media. So it involves purchasing different processor, purchasing the communication media, then linking them. All these things add up to the cost. So higher cost, security issue. So in the case of distributed system, since several processors are working parallelly at different sites, there must be some mechanism has to be employed to protect the data of one site, or protect the data available in one site from mischievous activities in some other site. Bandwidth. So in a distributed system, the different processors need to communicate through electronic mail, etc. In that case, bandwidth could be a major problem, because in India, the problem is higher bandwidth is not available. Then it takes more time for the message to transmit it. And at the same time, during transmission of some information, some message may be lost also. So these are the 4 major drawbacks of a distributed system. Higher cost, security issue anyway, the designer will take care of that issue, but you have to write suitable program to protect one site from another site, bandwidth and loss of message during transmission. The arrangement, the way the different processes in a distributed systems are arranged, we call it a topology. It's applicable to networks topology also. Some of the major topologies in a distributed system are, the first one is hybrid topology. It's a combination of 2 different topologies. This one is a bus topology. Bus topology means here on the top you have 3 computers, on the bottom you have 3 computers. No 2 computers can communicate directly. If any computer in a bus topology wants to communicate with any other computer, first the information has to be transmitted to this common line. This line we call it as a channel. Then any computer which is connected to that particular channel can access the data. But there is a problem, there is a mechanism to indicate to whom it has to go. So even though all the computers which are connected to this common channel can see that information, all the computer cannot access. All the computer cannot access, because every message, it includes the address also to whom it has to be transmitted. Next one is ring topology. In a ring topology, any computer can communicate with 2 different neighbors. This one is tree topology. This is mesh topology. One characteristics of a mesh topology, every computer is connected to every other computer. So it takes more communication lines. So more lines has to be used. And the last one is star topology. In case of star topology, central computer is connected to all the remaining computers, but no 2 computers will have a direct communication. So all communication should be through this central host or central node. Then in what is the parameter, or in what basis you select which topology is suitable for my application? While selecting a suitable topology for your application, you should bear in mind 3 parameters. The first one is installation cost. So whatever topology you are selecting, if your cost is very, very important, then you have to select some topology. Cost is not a matter. Cost is doesn't matter means then you can select some other topology. For example, here, in the case of mesh topology, since every computer is connected to every other computer, so connecting one computer to another computer takes more communication links. So in that case, so here this may take more memory. So this is very expensive. Suppose you want have a central control that has to control all the remaining computer, then in that case you can go for star topology. So in cost of physically connecting is one parameter. Communication cost, the time and the cost involved to send the message from one computer to another computer, we call it as communication cost. Similarly, for example, in the case of mesh topology, any computer is connected to every other computer. 2 different computers are directly connected. In that case, the cost of transmission is less. Whereas in the case of ring topology, suppose this computer on the top wants to communicate with this computer, means that information has to first go to the next one, then go to the next one, and then go to the next one. So that topology takes more time, and also the cost involved is more. Availability. Availability means if the failure of one site stops the entire system, means you say that when the availability is very, very poor. In this example, in case of star topology, the availability is poor because if the central processor fails, means all the nodes which are connected to that one also stops because they cannot work because there is no direct communication between two computers. In the case of mesh topology, the availability is high because failure of one or two sides also will not halt the system because every computer is connected to every other computer. So these consideration, these criteria you should bear in mind by selecting the topology for your application. Cost should be as minimum as possible. Communication cost, the cost and installation cost. Installation cost include how many lines has to be connected. The cost of physically connecting them, we call it as installation cost. And the cost of transmission, we call it as communication cost. So all these things depends on your application. There are two types of distributed system. The operating system used in a distributed system are of two types. One is network operating system. Second one is distributed operating system. In the case of network operating system, any user can access the resources available at some other computer, remote computer, in two different ways. One is you log on to that particular site or transferring the data from the available site to your machine. So one thing is, suppose the information is available in some site X, which is situated in Mumbai. That is, you have to log into the website or log into their site address, then access that information or pass a request to that site, then download the information available in that computer in your local computer, either by logging into remote machine or transferring the data from remote machine to your own machine. Example, remote login. One example of a remote login is Telnet and remote file transfer. For example, if you want to transfer a file from your Google or from Wikipedia, then what we'll do is we can directly download the information available in your Wikipedia to your own computer. This is one way. So suppose if you want to do some transaction in your bank, then in that case what we'll do is we have to log in through your net banking ID and password, then download the information. The second one is distributed operating system. In the case of distributed operating system, the user can access the resources at remote site in the same way as accessing the resources your computer. So it doesn't make any difference whether the resource is available in your computer or the resources available in the remote place. Even the resources available in the remote place also we can access it in the same way as you are accessing the resources available even on your own local computer. For example, www. The information situated in any corner of the world easily you can download into your local computer because it does not depend on how far that information is available, in which country the information is available. Nothing matters because you are accessing the information available in any page in your local computer through some browsers. There are three ways in which we can connect the different computers in a distributed system. They're depending on the geographical coverage. We categorize into three types. One is local area computer, a local area network, metropolitan area network, and wide area network. First one we call it as LAN, MAN, and WAN. The four characteristics of local area network are small geographical area. A local area network connects the different processors which are scattered across within the same building. The different computer may be scattered across different places in the same building. For example, in your college, you can have one computer in library, one computer in the principal chamber, one computer in the computer lab, one in the reading room, etc. We connect them through some telephone line. So such an arrangement, we call it a local area network because that entire network belongs to my organization. And some of the ways in which the different computers in a local area network can be connected are optical fibers, twisted pair, telephone line, etc. And since the distance from one computer to another computer is very less, in case of local area network, the error rate is less. If you connect the different computers are scattered across different cities, such a network we call it a metropolitan area network. So to connect the computers in a metropolitan area network, we go for either satellites or microwave link. The last one is wide area network. In a wide area network, the different processors are scattered across globally. One may be in India, one may be in Australia, one may be in US. You connect them together, that becomes a wide area network. And compared to the previous two, compared to local area network and metropolitan area network, wide area network is expensive. Some of the areas where distributed operating system finds application are banking, because in a bank what happens is the different branches are scattered across different cities of the same country, or sometimes some branches may be situated in different countries also. ATMs, aircraft control system, your wide variant WWW, World Wide Web, and online game. These are the some of the, we have mentioned only 5. In addition to that, we can find many other applications also. These are the some of the applications of distributed operating system. But one thing you should remember is the main difference between a parallel system and a distributed system is, in the case of parallel system, the memory, clock, everything can be shared. In the case of distributed system, every processor can have its own memory. The memory cannot be shared. Similarities, both are multiprocessor systems. So based on today's question, these are some of the probable questions in your examination. What do you mean by distributed system? In what way a distributed system is different from a parallel system? If you attend this lecture, probably you are in a position to answer these questions. Mention the features of distributed system. Write a note on network topology. What are the criteria for selecting topology? And have framed some 5 multiple choice questions based on today's content. A distributed system is also known as tightly coupled, loosely coupled, embedded, none of this. A parallel system, we call it a tightly coupled. A distributed system, we call it a loosely coupled. The correct answer is B. Network topology with maximum reliability. Reliability means failure of one or more set should not halt your system completely. The information available in one set can be easily accessible at another site also. If that fails, that site fails. Ring, star, bus, and mesh. The best answer, the correct answer is mesh, because in the case of mesh, every computer is connected to every other computer. A type of network which covers large geographical area is wide area network. The correct answer is C. Which of the following is the drawback of distributed system? Bandwidth issue, true. High cost, that is also true. Less reliability, that is false, because compared to other type of operating systems, this is highly reliable. Both A and B. The correct answer is D. Telnet is a type of remote login. Mail server, remote login, topology, LAN. The correct answer is B, remote login. So students, in today's class, we discussed about what are distributed system, how distributed system is different from your parallel system, major differences. Then what are the advantages of distributed system? What are its drawbacks? How the different processors in a distributed system can be connected through different topologies. That some of the features of different topologies, and depending on the geographical area that cover, how they are classified into different types of network as local area network, wide area network, and metropolitan area network. So I will conclude my today's class at this moment. Thank you. If you have any queries, you can send the queries, or you can post your comment in the comment section of your Google class.